For some reason, I foresee this pattern being similar to that of the summer of 2021. With exceptions, of course, 2 summers aren't the same, and the summer of 2021 had a lot more rainfall than I foresee this summer having. But in terms of the humidity, which I know is like the worst word you could hear over the summer, I feel like they're going to be comparable. But humidity was also the last thing on people's minds throughout our early season heat events in April and May. And we just totally lacked most of that stuff heading into 2021. But then the pattern changed quite significantly. The first time that we saw temperatures pushing 90 degrees, we did not see we didn't see this theme of like humid weather. But the next time it happened, the humidity was immediately soaring. June 5th wasn't the worst day in terms of humidity, with dew points largely kept to the low to mid 60s, but by June 6th, they were pushing on up into the 70s, where they largely stayed around that. It was enough to make a high of 83 on June 7th feel like 89, and a high of 86 on June 8th feel like 93, before a high of 90 on June 8th felt like 97 degrees. And this is all in suburbia. It was even worse in the city. June 10th appeared like it could be yet another miserable day. However, a cold front came through and it actually kept things quite comfortable for the next little while. But this overarching theme of humid weather continued into the summer. Basically, the dew point would just never get below the 60s except in exceptionally rare occurrences. One example was July 3rd, where humidity was pretty much maxed out all day, but the actual air temperature did temporarily drop to 59 degrees. And again, dew points above 60s, where you could begin to have that really annoying heat index. July 4th, also another day like that. We did have a few cooling fronts over the summer. July 31st pushed the temperature down to 60 degrees in the city, while here in the suburbs, the temperature got pushed down back into the upper 50s, down to about 57 degrees, with dew points falling to 51. They actually fell to 51, which is I think the lowest they fell to over the course of the summer. But then early August came and we were in Crapwoods, and from there, I think the dew points did flare back into the 70s. And that was really bad in the instances of where, so essentially outside and it's 85 degrees. And that kind of humidity with the dew point frequently around 70 would cause a heat index of 92 degrees. Or, you're outside and it's already 90 degrees and the heat index would make it jump to 99. For large parts of the summer, the humidity was just as bad as Florida level humidity, and the heat index would at points added up to 9 degrees from what the air temperature was telling us. That is mildly disturbing to think about. And when relief came on August 15th, for example, the dew point was, I think, only down to 58. And there was just, again, this very humid theme. August 19th was a day in which the actual high hit 86 and the heat index made it feel like 95. Again, another extreme example. Those dew points were consistently trying to jump into the 70s. And I had marksman practice that day, but thankfully the temperature wouldn't hit 86 until 5 p.m. Now, this humidity heat index thing would, I think, come to its worst once I came back from Pittsburgh. Hurricane Henri struck, which did actually bring the temperature down to the 70s, but the dew points also stayed in the 70s, and at some point in the suburbs, the dew point might have jumped to 80 degrees. I think that there was an ambient temperature of 82 degrees, and the heat index was already in the 90s just from that. That is disturbing. And it would only get worse from there back. August 25th, the drive back from Pittsburgh, there was a heat index of 99 degrees in Brooklyn when the air temperature was 91. August 26th, I had marksman practice where the high hit all the way up to 91 with a heat index of 100. August 27th, the hottest day of the year, had a high of 93 with a heat index of 102. There were a lot of times where if it got hot, it immediately got humid with it. This theme continued into September as well, where dew points just would not relax. They were pushed into the 50s on September 3rd in the aftermath of Ida. Of course, during the storm, dew points were about 75 degrees. And that was nice, but it wasn't going to last. And I mean, honestly, the fact that we thought mid-60s was low humidity is just a really distorted perspective. So, again, what I'm going to say is that this theme I can foresee continuing. I know humidity was the last thing on people's minds for a while, but we had June 23rd's mess of humidity, which actually wasn't really that bad. But then it got even worse on June 24th, and we're continuing it on into the 25th. And I think that as these days just go on and 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 on, we're going to see this this theme of, you know, with the weather forecast saying dew points are going to stay around 70. Is it going to be overbearingly hot? Not at first. We're going to see high temperatures largely cap off in the low 80s in the early week, with Tuesday having a high of only 76. So with the humidity, it's going to make it feel like 78 or 79. But you know, what we have to deal with in the beginning of July is that we're going to see that point in which once we're no longer dealing with temperatures of like 82 anymore, which is enough to make the heat index go to 86 with this kind of humidity, they're going to jump. July 3rd, we're forecasting a high in the upper 80s now. That's going to cause a heat index of 91 degrees. July 4th could have a high of 90 and a heat index of 95 with that kind of humidity. So again, this could be like a bit of a nightmare for my working, especially if it's sunny outside. Although even in the clouds, this kind of humidity, yeah, not exactly fun to deal with.